Right, we're holding by Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers, as is known. Again, want to welcome everyone. Holding by Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers. We are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. This is I think it's part 37 or 38. Part 37 would have been 38 if I would have given it last week. In any case, we are in chapter 2, Mishna 15. The Mishnah over here says, and we're speaking about the name Rebbe Eliezer, that the end of the Mishnah says that a person should warm themselves by the fire of the sages. Should beware lest you be burned by its embers. Their bite of a fox, sting of a scorpion, hiss of a serpent. And all their words are like fiery coals. So we spoke before the last number of weeks that a fox's bite extremely hard. Right, it's hard to recover from as well because their teeth are crooked. Right, when their teeth are crooked, you got to push away the flesh or pull away the flesh in order to fix it. Right, doctor has to cut the flesh, right, to widen it, to heal it. So it's even more painful. So we said that a person has to be careful, with their words, especially with the rabbi, again, because of the reaction. And then the reaction could be sharp. Reaction could be painful. I mean, it has to be, but, it depends, right? It depends on the situation. And you have to be prepared what they may, or may not say, right? So, there are people, obviously, do not want, they don't want difficult reactions. They want everything to be very nice. Everything's touchy-feely, very good, right? No one wants to feel any pain. Sometimes, sometimes, as Bishop Pirke Avos says, right? We'll see it one day, that you have to know your place, right? 100% a person has to know their place. But when a person gets mussar, especially from a rabbi, if they know what they're doing, they have proper credentials, it's not, people are not out to rebuke, so to speak, for the sake of rebuke itself, right? Because remember, the Torah says, book of Leviticus, I'll get there one day, chapter 19. The Torah says that you have an obligation to rebuke your fellow people, right? There's an obligation to rebuke your fellow people, but what does the end of the verse say? End of the verse says, but you got to be careful, right? That you got to be careful that you should not cause a sin, i.e., shouldn't embarrass them, right? So you're allowed to give rebuke when it's permissible, when you're obligated, right, so to speak. But as we always say, you have to know how to give it. Not only do you have to know how to give it, but you got to make sure you don't embarrass someone. You don't embarrass someone. You don't bear a sin. You don't bear a sin for what you do. Obviously, it's a big mitzvah. A big mitzvah, an obligation to rebuke. Very good. Definitely a mitzvah to rebuke. Right? There's no question, but doesn't mean I have to rebuke every second of every day. Doesn't mean that. Right? So, and some would say, or many would say, that we don't know how to rebuke in this generation. Now, not knowing how to rebuke, as we mentioned many times, does not allow you to never give rebuke. Right? Sometimes you have to give rebuke anyway. Right? Regardless of whether we don't know how to rebuke or not. Right? The Gemara says there's an opinion that you give rebuke up until the point where it's going to hit you. Right? Until a person's going to slap you upside the head. So sometimes you have to give rebuke, even if no one's going to listen. Right? We mentioned this many times also. Sometimes you have to protest. Right? You have to say things or do things regardless of whether someone is going to listen. Whether someone is going to listen, is going to listen or not. Right? Sometimes You have to know when, you have to know what circumstances and all that. But basically, there are times that things go on. You can't be quiet. Regardless, no one's going to listen. Right? Regardless if it makes us feel uncomfortable. We don't want to confront. Okay? Right? Yeah, some people like to confront for the sake of confronting. Very good. Yeah, but I would say in general that, even if it's not the way today, right? There are Torah giants that say we don't protest. Okay. Right? Just as valid, just as valid as an opinion. But there are Torah giants say no. Right? You have to know when, you have to know how, where, etc. But even so, even if you have to protest, you don't confront. There's no point to confront. You don't have to protest. Right? Times you're obligated to protest. Okay. But see, it's not a question of what makes us feel uncomfortable or not. That shouldn't matter. Right? That's relevant. It's not a question of how I feel. Question what my obligation is. If I have an obligation to do it, okay. So the person has to work on their feeling uncomfortable. Right? Or they're feeling, what's the word, confrontational. So to speak. Sometimes. It could be with family, it could be with friends. Sometimes things come up, you have to stand your ground. Even if they're not going to listen, you have to stand your ground. You don't want to, you don't want to get into confrontation. Okay. Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to say things. Sometimes you have to do things. Yeah. That's why we always say what's extremely important is that a person has proper guidance. They don't have proper guidance, and a person's doing things on their own. Right? Example is, if you look at Parshas Pinchas, everyone thinks, or a lot of people think, let's not say everyone, right? A lot of people think that what Pinchas did, he was a vigilante. And see, the Torah says it's okay to be a vigilante. But what did Pinchas do? Before he shish kebabbed, Zimri and Cosby Bador, Cosby, okay. Before he did that, Cosby Batsur, before he did that, what did he do? He asked Moshe Rabbeinu, what's halacha? He didn't do it on his own. Did not act on his own. Right? He did what he needed to do. Then when Moshe Rabbeinu he forgot the halacha. Then he said, I remember the halacha, very good. And he did what he did, but he put his life in danger. Okay. Right? But he knew what the halacha was. He didn't act for the sake of acting, right? Right? So here, as the Mishna says, that, their bite's bite of a fox, sting is sting of a scorpion, hiss of a serpent, all the words are like fiery coals, right? Gotta be careful with their words. Sometimes the words are strong. The person has to know how to digest it also. Rabbi's not out there to lash out for the sake of lashing out. They're like everybody else. The person has to control anger, just work on character traits, etc. Here is where we're talking about they get crossed. Or they're disrespected. Let's say. And sometimes, right? Sometimes, yeah. I'd say most times. In this case, if they are disrespected, or things are said in their name, which is not true, right? Which 100% is not true. Yeah, you have to answer. Even though I would say, you got big people sometimes. You have to come out, clarifications, different things. Why? Because people took what they said out of context. Now, if they're leaders, they got to answer. Someone would ask, well, don't they have better things to do with their time? Sure they do. They got a lot of better things to do with their time. But sometimes things need clarification. Or someone does something which not unheard of. Someone, will splice a video of something they said. They'll cut up their words, cut up their sentences, and make it sound the opposite of what they said. There are people that do it. right? Sometimes kind of hard to imagine, but yeah, people have an agenda. Want to make other people look bad. So I would tell you, even the person wasn't a rabbi, let's say, definitely not a good thing to do. But in this case, what does the Mishnah say? Their bite is very strong, right? Their sting is very strong. These are people you don't want to mess with. You don't want to get on the wrong side of. I remember when I used to sit with my Rebbe in the basement, the rabbinical court, I always was thankful I was on, which side of the table I was on. The litigants in front of us, and and I was sort of sitting, with these other great rabbis. I'd always say, I'm glad I'm on this side, not on that side. It's not a question, they could ruin you, this and that. These are people you don't want to mess with. Right? The fear of heaven, closeness to God, so to speak. So another aspect is that you could say, right? What are we talking about over here? That we're talking about the bite of a fox, right? For example, so a fox, we said, has crooked teeth, and therefore when they bite in a crooked way. So in order for the doctor to heal, he's got to cut away at the flesh. It's painful. It's painful. So another explanation is maybe you can try and appease it. I don't know, throw it a piece of meat, throw it some food. Do something to appease it. Give it something, it'll go on its way, or you can escape. And either way, that the fox will not bite. Problem is, this isn't the case. There's no way around it. Can't appease it, can't bribe it. Give it some meat, give it this, give it that. It's not going to be bribed. Animal will not be bribed. So the question is how you bear the pain. That's what's going to happen. Right? Because when the bite comes, it's coming. It's never going to stop. There's no way to appease it. It's painful. It's going to take longer to heal than normal bites from any other animal. So again, a person may say, well, aren't we all made from the same mold? True. Right? Same form. Okay, men and women are different. Very good. Right? But more or less from the same form. So wouldn't you say if a fox would bite, two men, wouldn't it be the same? Or two women, or a man and a woman? Wouldn't it be the same? You probably say the healing process is the same. They bite at an angle, so you got to clear away the flesh. Doctor has to clear away the flesh, right? Cut around other flesh. Yeah, it's going to be painful either way. Even if that's true, nonetheless, the bite of a fox is worse. The bite of a fox is worse than any other animal. You'll tell me, come on, you got lions, rip things to shreds. You got other animals, very good. Right? We'll explain why it's more painful. So here's the parable. The rabbis compare it to the bite of a fox. And we'll see. Sting of a scorpion. Right? What is it? If a scorpion stings, you die. Right? Which get an antidote. Right? Essentially, if you don't get an antidote pretty quick, you'll die. So a scorpion could even kill on Shabbos. You don't have to trap it, you kill it. Dangerous animal. Right? Right? It's dangerous. So the bite is painful, more painful than any other bite. The sting, it's also going to be very strong, right? We'll see what that means in a second. But here, so two people could be sharp, right? Could be very sharp. But there's a difference. There's a difference. Rabbi sharpness be worse. Be stronger. That's what the Mishnah is telling you. Be stronger than anyone else. Now, what would be the reason? The Gemara says they're inside. They have to be the same on the outside as they are on the inside. They have to be willing to stand up. They're willing to fight, not physically. A lot of times, a rabbi is let's say, leads congregation, has his own synagogue, right? Very good. And a lot of people make up part of the synagogue. So a lot of times they're paying a salary, always better to have a different job so you don't have to necessarily rely on the salary because they're the ones that paying. So they'll say, well, you don't do what we say, we'll take away the salary. We'll pay you less or whatever. But regardless, as my Rebbe would say, if they're leading a congregation and the congregation is not trying to drive them out of town, they're not doing the job right. Right? What's their job? Their job's to teach. Very good. But what's the essence of their job? The essence of their job is to inspire, to help, comfort. But the essence really is to tell people what they need to hear. Not to tell people what they want to hear. Anybody can do that. Right? It's very easy to do. Person hears what they want to hear. Very good. Right? No problem. No issues. So to speak. There won't be any issues. Because they're hearing what they want to hear. They're speaking to the least common denominator, we would say. They're speaking to the average person. Good. But that's not always what needs to be done. Ramosha Schneider, blessed memory, tell his students, you could be the next Rebbe Kiveg. You could be the next Baruch Ber. The next Chofetz Chaim. So students would say, God didn't give me the brain for that. He didn't give me the righteousness for that. He didn't give me a lot of things. Very good. Moshe Snyder said, you got to strive. You got to work hard. Baruch Ber was the head of the yeshiva in Kamenetz, said on himself, he said, I strive to be like Rabbi Akiva Eiger. And I ended up Baruch Ber. But he said, if I would have tried to be like, I tried to be Baruch Ber, I wouldn't have amounted to anything. So you got to have dreams. Got to work hard. God gives people unbelievable siyata shmaya, heavenly help. Because it's not based on us. Right? So this is a mistake also people make. A person has, let's say, average brain capacity. Okay. They have average brain capacity. Isn't it true? A lot of hard work, person could maximize that. Could. Very well could. They asked Rebbe Chodon, famous student of the Chofetz Chaim, Hashem Yikam Damoy. God should avenge his blood. He was head of the yeshiva in Baranovich. And instead of himself, he had average intelligence. He wasn't a child prodigy. Didn't have over 120 IQ. Average intelligence. So they asked him, how is it possible you became we became? So he gave an answer. The answer was hasmada. What's hasmada? Is that he focused on one thing. Learning, reviewing, learning, reviewing. He gave it everything he had, and God opened up doors. Spiritual doors. The person will think, come on, it's different generation, it's this, We're a much weaker generation. What does the person want in this world? What do they want in this world? What's their goal in the world? King David says in Psalm 90, King David says, person lives in this world 70 years. If he's got strength, 80 years. Everything over that's a bonus. So one day we'll get to that Mishna, I don't know when. Maybe when about 102. You know, the person that's 18 should be doing this. The person that's 30, they'll have this. 40 this, 50 this, whatever it is. So it's a cycle of where a person should be, what they should be able to do. But Bruce said, I'm limited in capacity, limited in time. Okay. Right? Famous story. Answer of Israel philanthropist, blessed memory. Founder of the Muslim movement. Someone came to him and asked him, what should I learn? I have a certain amount of time to learn. So Israel philanthropist said Muslim. The students asked him, well, we learn ethics. So students asked him afterwards, Rabbi, come on. Told this person to learn ethics. Why don't you tell them to learn Gemara? Why don't you tell them to learn Halacha? Chumash, other things. So Israel philanthropist said if they learn Musar, if they learn ethics, they'll see they have a lot more time on their hands than they think. And then they'll have more time to learn. So says King Solomon in Proverbs, you got to want Torah more than anything else. You got to want it like diamonds and rubies and all kinds of things. Because anyone in this process wants to convert, or even if not, there are obstacles. Plenty of obstacles. Yeah, we're in this world to toil, the Ramchal says. Brings it down, the path is just. Brings it down, and Derech Hashem. We're in this world to toil, the struggle. Everything is a test. Someone asked me recently about certain things, and they said, is this a test? I said, yeah. What it is? Life is a test. Everything's a test. Anyone in this process, there are obstacles. Could be financial obstacles. Could be health issues. Could be family issues. Could be 1.5 million different issues. Someone will ask, why does that have to be so hard? It's like a weeding out process. Less than 20% start the process, even if they're accepted by a rabbinical court, actually finish. So it's a weeding out process. Anyone goes to medical school, first year, 30% wiped out. 30% drop off. Second year medical school, another 15%. Third year, if you made it by the third year, you'll survive. Most likely you'll survive. Now, why they make it so hard? Because they want the best. They want the best to survive. Because obviously being a doctor is not an easy thing. So, they want the best. So in that sense, the weeding out process. Why conversions are different. So there are 1 million reasons why people don't end up converting, even if they were serious and whatever. Right? But at the end of the day, there are obstacles. Don't we all face obstacles? We all face obstacles. Some more, some less, some that feel impossible. Impossible. Question comes up. I hear a lot. Why did God put me in this non-Jewish body? Good question. Very legitimate question. Simple answer is that soul was once Jewish. Then through assimilation into marriage, end up not being Jewish. Okay. How does that work? That's Kabbalah. Very good. But at the end of the day, what happens? What happens? Person get burnt out. Person get beaten down in life. And they ask why. Would have been so much easier if I would have been a Jew, born in a Jewish body. Right? It's very easy to play Monday morning quarterback. Good for now that football season started up. Yeah, Monday morning quarterback. Those, if God would give him a crystal ball, it would show them, okay, if I were to put you in a Jewish family, this would happen. If I were to put you like this would have happened. Or potentially happened. But he didn't. Right? Doesn't Mishna Pirke Avos say we're born against our will, we died against our will? Scoffman would say in parentheses, you still have to live. Right? We don't have, we don't have any reason why our parents are our parents, siblings are our siblings. We're not given that choice. But make no mistake, God doesn't make mistakes. God put the soul in the body to reach its potential. To reach its potential. Why that body? Why that family? God knows. But God himself doesn't make mistakes. Like some people want to say. I didn't ask to be born. And it wasn't your question. Not a question, you weren't asked to be born. The Mishna says you're born against your will, you die against your will. God put the soul in the body for a reason. Yeah? For you to work on whatever you need to work on, who your parents are, who your siblings are, socioeconomic situation. You're not given a choice. Right? Well, I didn't ask to be born. You don't think God knows what he's doing? That's what it sounds like. God doesn't know what he's doing. God forbid. Every soul is placed in a specific body by a specific family. Why? Because that's what God deemed. That's what he did. In order for that person and that soul to reach its true perfection. Now, it might be very hard, might be easier another way, whatever it is. God did it for a specific reason. He had a purpose in doing it. It's not telling us what it is. But he's got a purpose in putting you in that body. Putting the soul in that body. So what I'm saying, God forbid, God doesn't know what he's doing. That's not how we're reaching potential. It's heresy. Right? 100% heresy. Because God has a specific place for every soul. Now, we don't always understand it. We're not given a choice. Okay. That doesn't mean he's not in control. That doesn't mean the soul's going in there in order, not to reach potential. God knows what he's doing. But we can always ask that question. Well, it's not fair. What my parents put me through. What my siblings put me through. Look at these other things. Okay. It's part of the test. Everything we go through in life is a test. Are we going to pass the test? We're not going to pass the test. Well, this is a question a lot of people ask. I changed my life. I went through all this. And look what happens. I'm working on this. I'm working on that. Seemingly it's getting worse. It's always the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, that's not the point here. The point is, what do I have to do in this world? What is my obligation? What's my obligation? Be close to God. That's my obligation. To do what God says. To do what God says in the best way. That's my obligation. Oh, you want to tell me, I'm in this place or that place and it seems so impossible and no one wants to help me and this and that. It's not fair. It's not a question of what's fair or not fair. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to get yourself out of it? Possibly. Some people, they can't get out of it. Okay? God's not going to hold it against them. I get contacted a lot of times, people from India, Bangladesh, different places. Now, let's say some of these people are actually serious. Let's say. Hard to tell sometimes, but let's say. They're in a place they can't move. First of all, A, they don't do conversions there. B, they have no money. Right? So what should we do? What can we do? Say, finally, I came to the truth. I came to the realization. Everyone else there worshiping cows. Okay. Very good. So you came to the truth. But now you're limited. You're limited what you can do. Is God expecting a person to jump through hoops? Depends who the person is. If the person's able to do it, good. If they're not able to do it, God's not going to have any claim against them. But what should we do? What should we do? Someone would say, got to raise a lot of money, help non-Jews. Very good. Great idea. Who's going to pitch in? I know someone else had this idea also. Not my own idea. Right? It's a serious problem. It's a serious problem. So everyone should pray I get a lot of money, because that's what I would do with it. Part of it. Would definitely help non-Jews get to where they need to go to. I mean, whatever. People, they have to be vetted, see that they're real, different things. It's a need. No question. Definite need. But when it comes to so many things in the Jewish community need help, that's going to come first, more non-Jews. For better or for worse. That's what's going to happen. I've been cursed out by people, said I'm more serious than most Jews, and Jewish community owes me. We don't owe non-Jews nothing. Remember, you're coming to us. You're not coming with criteria. Now, are there things that could be done better? Yes. Could people help out more? Yes. Not perfect. But again, people will say, I didn't ask to be born this way. Well, guess what? Wasn't your choice. You weren't asked to be in a non-Jewish family or be a non-Jew, right? Or a secular Jew being their secular family, whatever. You're right. But guess what? God put the soul into man. He breathed in the spirit of life. And then what the Torah says, Book of Genesis, breathed in the spirit of life. Very good. So doesn't God know what he's doing? Doesn't he know which soul to put in which body? Yes, he does. 100%. He knows exactly what he's doing. If he knows exactly what he's doing, what's the complaint? You can say it's too hard. You can say I didn't ask for this. That wasn't the question. Nobody's asking us. Nobody's asking. God put the soul in a human being. Very good. Which human being? God decides. To help that soul reach its true potential through that body. Now, a person can say, if I were God, put on my funny George Burns glasses, my funny mustache, if I was God, I would have put myself in a different body. Oh, really? In a different family, in a different this. But you're not. See, God's like the Matrix. He sees everything, past, present, future. He knows what's best for us. I was just saying over Shabbos, Shabbos day, when it comes to Yisurim, suffering, Shabbos comes up enough. So, I was reading from Wellsprings of Torah, from Michael Peterman. Got a lot of good stories there. And he's saying, he was saying that what's the purpose of suffering for us? It's to benefit us. Because the Chofetz Chaim says, nothing bad comes out of heaven. Nothing bad comes from God. We just don't see it as good. It's our puny brains that don't see it. But there's nothing bad. It's to our benefits. So he told the story. There were 5 yeshiva students during the war. and they're able to get forged passports, to get out where they were. Sorry, there were 6 of them, 5 of them came. Only 5 came. So for one person, he looked at it, the other 5 went. He didn't get. So he felt so bad. I'm going to be stuck here. I'm going to die here. So what happened? These 5 got caught, looked at their passports. Something funny looked in the passports. They brought in a professional to see if they were forged. They found that they were forged. They all died. This person survived and lived to over 100. Or in the mid-90s. He thought that was the kiss of death. He didn't have his passport. How's he going to get out? How's he going to survive? The other 5, going to go to freedom. What happened? Just the opposite. They all died. He survived. Why? Again, these ways are hidden. We don't know. But isn't that tremendous suffering on that person? Sure. And it looks bad. It looks even worse. It looks 10 times worse. Like, how am I going to live? How am I going to survive? Seems impossible. My friends, they got lucky. They had the passports. And I'm in trouble. And what happened? Just the opposite. A lot of things we see like that. That, at the beginning, it looks really bad. Could be bad. Yeah. In the end, it comes out for our good. While a person's going through it, they don't necessarily see it. In that case, wouldn't all of us have thought, this is the end? I'm never going to get out now. I'm stuck. Worked this hard. Didn't get the passport. Finished. And that was his salvation. The ways of God are hidden. Right? In this generation, previous generations, since the destruction of the temple, hiddenness within hiddenness. We can't understand. It's impossible to understand. But see, God's not asking any of us. Because we understand He knows what's best. We don't see it that way per se sometimes. We want to say, like, what do you want from me? I'm trying this, I'm trying that, I'm trying the other thing. Right? I've heard a number of people say, I'm doing all these different things, it's getting worse. What's the answer? You keep doing what you're doing. You got to put your best foot forward? Okay. But you got to do what you got to do. So where's the person's emunah? Where's their faith and belief in God? But it doesn't have to be this hard. That's not the question. That is not the question. Or a person says, yeah, got involved with, some people, and now there's extortion. Now people want a lot of money. They'll help me, but they want a lot of money. Well, again, I'm not saying it's right by any stretch. At the end of the day, as we said before, Torah is something, as King Solomon says, you're going to want it more than anything else. You're going to want it like diamonds, rubies. It's one of the 3 things that are hard to acquire. Right? Torah, Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, and Olam Haba in the next one. 3 very hard things to acquire. But you have to want it. You have to be fastidious. You have to continue to learn and review. You have to want it. More than anything else. So I heard someone say, or someone really asked the question, and that is, how do I want it? How do I live every day to want it more? How do I do that? How do I keep that fire lit? So I'd say, you gotta sing and dance more. Partially. You have to see the bigger picture. You gotta try and make it all work out, but you know what? There are a lot of times, many, many times, person will shrug their shoulders and they'll say, I don't know what you want here. I'm not worrying about it. You're in charge. I'll do the best I can. You're in charge. You make it happen. But you have to mean it. And a lot of times my Rebbe would say, brought down a Parshas Veschonon, why do they not get their prayers answered? Right? What's the reason? What's the simple reason? So he says the simple reason is because literally you gotta beg. Right? That's what Veschonon means. Tachanunim. It's like you're begging. It's like you're on your hands and knees in front of the king. Now think about it. A person's ever been whatever level of dire straits. Stuck to the left, stuck to the right, stuck in front of you, stuck everywhere. Who's the only one who can help? God. You gotta put your best foot forward. But you have to remember that doesn't count for anything. The answer, may come, or salvation may come from somewhere you didn't expect. But you put your best foot forward, and that's it. You say, God, you're the one in charge. Say it 1,000 times a day. I can't do anything without you, but you gotta beg. That doesn't have to grant it to you. It's come from the depth of your hearts. It's got to come from the depths. That you really mean it, you're not just saying the words. But a person will say, isn't it hard every day, day in and day out, saying the same prayers, doing this? You don't see so much change. You'd be surprised. I think a person would be very surprised. The reason you'd be very surprised is because you can say, I don't see any growth. I don't see any spiritual growth. Not true. Why do I say not true? Because I would say, think about where you were 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. If a person's growing spiritually, they know they've changed at some level, even if it's small. At some level, that's growth. Right? What's the highest level of fear of God? So let me say it like this. What's the lowest level? You do things because you're afraid you're going to fry in hell forever. That's the lowest level. What's the highest level? It's what we call Yiras Yisromamus. The fear that comes from understanding God's greatness in the world and what he does. Right? Example we always give. Person's infinitesimally small speck of cosmic dust. They live in a town, in a city, in a state, in a country, in a continent, on a planet, right? Getting smaller. In a galaxy, getting smaller. So even though we're the epitome of creation, we're the greatest of creation, in the bigger scheme of things, we're nothing. We're nothing. Think about a galaxy. Think about, sending someone, wherever they are in this world, send them to Mars. How long would it take to get to Mars? Get some other planets if you survive? Thousands of years. Light years, whatever it is. There's a whole galaxy out there. We're going to say, this is the only one that matters. Because this is where Earth is. Humans and all that, very good. But think about the world in general. Think about the fact that the Earth on its rotation doesn't go a little bit closer to the sun. Otherwise, we'd be incinerated. Think about the fact the Earth, doesn't go a little further back. Be like a frozen tundra, like Pluto. Pluto got demoted as a planet. Okay. Think about the brilliance of the human body, right? Go to the chapter in the Pirke Avos through the heart. Gate of reflection talks about, the miracle of the human body and how the human body works. Now, baby's formed and all that. And then the baby comes out and what it can't do and how it learns over time. And you can say, okay, this is all nature. Very good. Isn't it interesting? Everyone starts off the same. And how the human body works in general. When you look at that, you see, the awesomeness, so to speak, of all that. That's the highest level. Not just like on a fry now forever. Right? The issue is seeing God's greatness in the world and how that works, how that affects us, why that should affect us. Because at the end of the day, as we always say, we're relatively healthy, all of a sudden something happens. Your whole body's out of whack. Can't do anything. Or very little. Or let's say you're in pain. So until the person, starts to feel better, and once they feel better, they remember the pain they were in before. They forget. One of the things Pirke says is a good thing. Forgetfulness. Because if we remember everything, there are a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to function. Well, there's a benefit. Definitely a benefit. But imagine if a person didn't have the memory. Yeah. You remember where to go, what to do. Imagine your memory got erased. Or, God forbid, a person had dementia. Right, or Alzheimer's. Can't function. Can't function anything. Any last thing you can't do. Your mind is now made out of Swiss cheese. Can't bring it back. It's a terrible thing to see. Especially a loved one and, go through that. But if you didn't have your memory, what would happen? What do you think? You wouldn't, there's so many things that you wouldn't be able to do. You paid for something, you don't remember if you paid for it. You got something, you don't remember what it's for. A lot of things. But see, we don't think in these terms. We take it for granted. Of course, the person got a memory. Person thinks about certain things, whatever. We don't think until something happens. Till, let's say, somebody's in pain. Or they see things, they hear things, whatever it may be. Somebody asks, the suffering always go with true love. Suffering always goes with repentance. If a person, what's the purpose of suffering? Right? Got to pay back for what we've done in this world. Have to pay back. So if you have to pay back, that should lead to repentance. Anytime a person suffers, Gemara says, even if you looking for change, and you came out with the wrong amount or whatever, that's also suffering. But what should suffering do? Make me think. So the reason we suffer is because of what we do, in general. It's because of what we do. Now, somebody will ask, well, what's the measure for measure? A lot of times we'll never know. Sometimes maybe God throws a proverbial bone, maybe. Right? Show us what the measure for measure is. Many times He won't. We'll try and look into our actions. But this comes up all the time. I want to know why. Great. We'd all love to know. Didn't Moses ask God that question? Then he said, I want to see you face to face. What did God say? No one can see my face and live. You can only see me from behind. Seeing me from behind means you can only understand maybe in hindsight. Maybe. But to see what you're going through right now, no. Impossible. Totally impossible. So, in that sense, what happens? What happens is that a person will suffer, they'll go through difficulty. And then what's the whole purpose? Cleanse us. Pay us back for what we've done. Make us suffer so we don't have to suffer as much in the next world. Let's pay back. So a person has to realize when there are difficulties, different things, it's because of things we've done. Kind of harsh reality, but we have to take responsibility for our actions. It's very easy to blame someone else. Very easy. You did this because someone did that, or whatever the case is. That's 120 years. When the person dies, God's going to say, why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Now, you can't deny it. Why? Because you're recording. You're being recorded. Everything you do, you're being recorded in this world. Very good, so you can't deny it. So say, no, you're right, I did it, but I had this in mind. Or I had that in mind. Now, God may give you a free pass, may not give you a free pass. He knows what you did. So now we're very good at making excuses. Very good. Of course I spoke Lashon Hara against this person. They deserved it. They're this status, that status, whatever. So if person's right, good. If they're not right, they'll pay. It's payback. It's payback. Somebody asks, somebody asks like this. If someone would feel bad right before Shabbos, can't even light candles, or say Kiddush or pray, what do you do? There's nothing to do. Shabbos comes in, right? Let's say it's after sundown, you can't light candles now. Too late. Now, let's say you felt better, you could pray. Okay, if not, they're exempt. Person's sick, they're exempt. Right? You can't eat. What are you supposed to do? You can't force yourself, you're sick. Right? Onus Rachmana Patra. If a person is under onus, they're sick, something happens beyond their control, they're exempt. 100% they're exempt. If it's a real onus. Right? If it's something well beyond the control, a person gets sick, it's beyond their control. And sometimes the person will feel better, whatever, but in general, let's say a person feels so sick they can't get out of bed. Right? I'll make it very easy. Can't get out of bed, can't move. Person head's throbbing, stomach ache, whatever. So what do? You're stuck. Nothing to do. Yeah, but anyway, the Shabbos canceled. Okay. You're sick. You couldn't light. Couldn't make Kiddush because you were sick. Okay, so what do? Can't make it up. You're sick. Right? They don't have to worry. Right? That you don't have to worry about. Somebody asks, does tshuva, especially this month for Rosh Hashanah? Do tshuva right. Avoid bad decrees. Should do tshuva every day anyway, right? This is a special month of Elul. Very special month. God is closer to us than any other time. So you got to take advantage. You got to take advantage of that time. Right? That is true. You got 30 days before Rosh Hashanah. Right? Less than, so you got 3.5 weeks to go. Yeah, before Rosh Hashanah. So we got to take advantage of the time. 100%. Really, again, we should be doing Shuv all year round. No question. It's easier to repent now because this is the time God's closer to us than any other time. Someone asked, does it count as if it's done the mitzvah when you're exempt? It depends. Depends what the exemption is. Right? In other words, if you're totally exempt, yeah, you don't have to worry. 100%. If a person's sick, really sick, they're exempt. Nothing to talk about. Right? Will they they're not going to get penalized, certainly, for not doing it, not doing the mitzvah. On the other hand, if a person desires to do the mitzvah, they can't do it. For whatever reason, let's say they can't do it. Right? Let's say they can't do it. Okay. They get credits if they did it. Right? But let's say someone started a mitzvah and they didn't finish it. That, the Gemara says, you bury your wife and your kids in the process. What's the difference? Why is it so severe? Simple answer is because if you didn't do the mitzvah you wanted to, good, you get credit. If I couldn't do the mitzvah, if I started the mitzvah and I didn't finish it, it means the mitzvah is not that important to you. You say, but I got distracted. I didn't mean to get distracted. You're right. You might be right. But you started the mitzvah. So, unless your total onus is beyond your control, if that wasn't the case, you're in serious trouble. Because you had an obligation to do the mitzvah. Why didn't you finish it? Let's say I got distracted, this happened, the other thing happened, whatever. So if God accepts it, very good. If not, well, what would God answer? Why didn't you finish? What does it show beyond the shadow of a doubt? Now, people may disagree with this, but why? What does it show? Doesn't it show it's not really that important to you? That's what it shows, right? Because someone would say, why? Finish it. Finish doing the mitzvah. Why didn't you finish? Why in the world didn't you finish doing the mitzvah? Right? What's the answer? For whatever reason. Right? For whatever reason. You didn't finish it, but it wasn't because of onus. That wasn't the reason. Could be any number of reasons why you didn't finish. But what is that showing? Showing it's not that important. You're going to say, but I do understand it's important. But you didn't finish it. You started without finishing. This happens a lot, by the way. Anyone who wants to convert in general. People have ups and downs all the time. Some people will quit, then they'll come back, and they'll quit, and they'll come back. Other things happen. They know I'm not going to convert. I will convert. Because of different circumstance. But it's a problem. Person's up and down like a yo-yo. Right? So a person has to be consistent. Consistency is hard. I'm not gonna say not. Especially right now, a person doesn't have the obligation to do certain things. Or do many things. So I would say in Torah in general, no matter what you do, Jew is not or non-Jew or JIT, so I would say a Jew in training, you have to have a sense of urgency. We should all live our lives with a sense of urgency. It's easier in the month of Elul, court case coming. You don't know how it's going to come. Plenty of people didn't make it through the year. Nobody knows what's going to be. The whole world gets judged, Jews and non-Jews. So there has to be a sense of urgency. This has to be the most important thing you ever do. I'm not saying every second of every day has to be intense, per se. But it's a serious thing. It's about life and death. Imagine the Rambam says every city, every town, every place has a scale. And the scale is always going up and down. But my action right now could tilt the scale on which side? Positive. Or, God forbid, negative. Right? So it has to be, we have to live our lives in a tense way. You got to be careful what you see, what you do, what you think. I would say that a person, there are no days off. No days off from Torah. Torah is something, What does the Gemara say? It's one of the three things that are hard to acquire. You got to work hard on a daily basis. It's good for everyone. What I do right now can turn the tide of where I live. For better, or God forbid, for worse. This is what the Rambam says. So I'd ask the million-dollar question. So I don't know how do people live that way. Why don't they live their lives that way? So we're living in a generation, or I would say a cream puff generation. And in this cream puff generation, I would say people have very little self-esteem. Very low self-esteem. They think, come on, what I do really matters. Can change the world. Why not? Chaim of Volozhin brings down, famous student of the Vilna Gaon, brings down the Nefesh of Chaim, very beginning. Our actions matter. See what happened to Adam and Eve, ate from the tree. Our actions matter. What I do matters. There are great repercussions for what I do. Now, tomorrow, the next day. Repercussions for ourselves, spouses, kids. It's intense. So what would a person rather have? That or fantasy? Most people say fantasy. It's easier. You don't think as much. You don't want the evil inclination get into you. You want to feel good about what you do. So, okay, let me have some fun. Let me enjoy. Don't just tell me everything is forbidden and there's judgment and this is what the real world is. Regardless of what anyone else will tell you. This is the real world. Spiritual world. This is what I have to do. This is what I have to think. Is it always easy? No. But, what would a person rather have? Think about everything they do, have real meaning in life, or fantasy? So most people say fantasy. It's easier. I don't have to think as much. A lot easier. Somebody asks, why is the number 27, Psalm 27, why is it said morning and nights during the month of El? Right? And during Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, up until the end of Sukkot. Answer, because there are references to all three in the Psalm itself. There are references to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and Sukkot. So Rabbi said, it's a good thing to say in the month of El. To say through Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And on Sukkot. To remind us the important time that we're living. A person tie their shoelace on Shabbos. Yes. You're allowed to, as long as you don't make a double knot. If you make two bows and you tie them, that's fine, because it'll come out eventually. A person made a double knot, it's a problem, it'll never come out. You can't make a knot that's going to last more than 24 hours. A person can say, come on, if I make a double knot, it won't last that long. Not true. Should last more than 24 hours. If you made a very good double knot, yeah, not coming out. Right? Not coming out. But if you make a single knot, it could come out. 100% it could come out. So making a single knot, fine. Double knot would be a problem. Somebody asks, does it count as having started? The person did not initiate officially with the rabbinical court. No, it doesn't matter. If a person wants to learn Torah and they're in the process of conversion. Now, some people would tell you better get confirmation from rabbinical court. Yeah. Before they allow you maybe to come to services or do other things. So if a person wants to start the process, even without that, they could. They can start learning. Right? Obviously, they have to have guidance, know what to do, what not to do. But in general, you don't need a rabbinical court to confirm you're in the right direction. It's good to have that. I don't think there's any question. Right? But does that mean you can't start learning or start a program of learning if that wasn't the case? I would say no. Now, other people may disagree. Right? Other people may say you have to go to the rabbinical court first, don't do anything before that. I don't know. I think it's a waste of time in some way. You have to sit there and wait 6 months, 3 months before you finally get an appointment. It's a waste of time. It's a good thing to do. I'm not saying not, but I wouldn't stop people from learning because of it, because they haven't got a final answer. Right? I definitely wouldn't say that. Because then, again, by the time they get back to you and this and that, you're back and forth, what could happen? Months go by. A person shouldn't try and get as much information as they can before. I wouldn't say that. Why shouldn't they be allowed to? Person asks, can you clean your shoes with wet tissues? Oh, that's an issue. That is an issue because wet tissues or water is cleansing. That is cleansing. That's a problem. That's like doing laundry. Now, that's only by something that absorbs. If it wouldn't be something that absorbs, it might not be an issue. But if it's like, leather shoes or something, you want to wash them off, that'd be a problem. That would be forbidden. That would be forbidden. Let's see. Somebody asks, why does one shin on tefillin have 4 legs? Yeah, what is the shin represent? God's name, right? There are a lot of things, by the way, when it comes to tefillin, before we get to this, very cryptic, extremely cryptic. Because what does the Torah say? The Torah says, shall bind the first sign upon your hand upon an ornament between your eyes. It doesn't say anything about what they look like, how to make them. And there are 10 details about making tefillin that are what we call halacha Moshe Sinai. They were passed down to Moses Mount Sinai, tradition of Mount Sinai, etc. And one of them is there should be protruding shins formed from the creases in leather, the right and left side of the head. Yeah, the question is, okay, why should one have 3 heads or legs and the other have 4? Yeah. So some explain 2 ways the letter can be formed. Right? How can they be formed? Either you write it or you engrave them. So Moshe wrote a Torah scroll when he received the 10 commandments, engraved them. So what happened? So now when they were engraved, I got a letter shin. So ink will be applied to write what? When it's written, 3 heads. Engraving, how does it look? It either looks like it's made out of the air, comes out of the air. Right? Again, what does that refer to? Esoteric dimension of the Torah. So therefore they use 4 segments and creating a shin with 4 heads. Right, that the Shulchan Aruch mentions, etc. So let's keep in mind also whether it's 3 or 4. Zohar says 3 and 4. What do they make up? The number 7. What does 7 represent? One example is the menorah, right? It represents the menorah in the temple. Also, 7 blessings of the Shema. What do I mean? 3 in the morning, 4 in the evening, right? You also get 7. So so that's one explanation. There are other 7 days of the week, 7 divine attributes, let's say. So again, what are we doing? We're channeling that energy into our lives. Some say 3-headed shin corresponds to 3 patriarchs, Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov. 4 represents 4 matriarchs, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Also, tefillin is equal to the entire Torah. All the mitzvahs are alluded to in 2 shins. Letter shins, a numerical value of what? Of 300. 2 shins make 600. So you put them together, I got the word sos, right? Shin, shin, which means joy. Reminding us, 2 mitzvahs of great joy. Also has a numerical value of 6. Calculate the value of each letter. But you truncate all the zeros. You get a smaller value. Right? You're going to get a smaller value. So if I add, what do I get? I get 600. I got 6 plus 7 is, right? If you add the heads of the shins together, I get 7. Right? So I got the 6, 7, and 600 is 13. 613. It's another explanation. So those are a few explanations why that is. Someone asks, is there a book or a website where you can read the meaning behind each letter? So I think I mentioned this last week. Matisyahu Glazerson has a book about the holiness of the letters. Right? It's good, Kabbalistic meaning of all the letters. Right? I don't know the specific website for that. I could probably look it up. But he's got a book on Kabbalistic meaning of the letters. Someone asked 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. Right. So again, you have 600 plus 7, right? 7 mitzvahs of Noah. Again, they're an umbrella, more than 50 or 60, but right, 7 mitzvahs, right? And then you got that 6, so 600 plus 13 is 613. 100%. There are a lot of things we see. We see in Torah in general that the Torah is always interconnected. In other words, you don't normally see one thing in Torah that has no connection to anything else. In other words, the entire Torah is intertwined. It's very much intertwined. Right? In a lot of different ways. So it's not like we would say it's its own entity, and one thing doesn't apply to something else. We don't necessarily always understand the connections, okay. Right? But at the end of the day, it's all intertwined. Whether I know certain things about one thing, and it could overlap in other things. Right? It could definitely overlap, into other things that you dig deep enough, you see. You can see connections. You can see how it works. How it all works out. It's it's mind-boggling, in a certain way. Like it's like looking at the what do you call it? It's like looking at pieces of a puzzle. So what do? You got to put the pieces together to make whatever the puzzle is. Good? Right? So even if that's true, you don't necessarily see how all the pieces fit together. And sometimes it's hard to put the pieces together. The story's complex. It's extremely complex. But if a person's learned enough, it's pretty amazing. Right? The questions, start to change. It's not, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? What does the other thing mean? Good, you always have that. Right? But, people will ask different questions. Right? Who ask different questions. Why do we say like this over here? Because it says like this over there. That's a different type of question. That's already spiritual growth. That's tremendous growth. Yeah, because now you have a certain level of knowledge. Now, even if a person doesn't think so, the question's very good. It's a very different question. Right? It's a very different question. Somebody asks, what is the order of blessings if I eat a meal with breads? And with it, foods are not usually eaten with breads, i.e. grapes, watermelon. Oh, good question. Normally, anything that's eaten with breads, you don't make a blessing on. Right? You don't make a blessing on. Any drinks except wine, grape juice, and let's say anything used for satiation, pasta, meat, fish, chicken, string beans, right? Potatoes, any side dishes. Now you ask things you don't eat with bread, i.e. grapes or watermelon. Now the question is, let's say by the third meal on Shabbos, the person doesn't want to eat, heavy foods, let's say. So they have fruits. They have fruit during the meal. But why is the fruit during the meal? It's not for dessert. Part of the meal. If it's part of the meal, you don't make a blessing on it. I'm not talking about whether it's an appetizer. Forget about that. Right? It gets more complex. Forget about if it's an appetizer. Right? You're eating it during the meal. Now, if it's part of the meal, it's part of the meal. I don't have to make a blessing on it. If these things come as part of desserts, you're not eating as part of the meal, then you have to make a blessing on it. Then for sure you would have to make a blessing on it. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Because it's part of the meal. Yeah. So if it's part of the meal, doesn't matter what it is. Right? Except for wine and grape juice, let's say. Anything part of the meal is part of the meal. So it's part of the meal. Even if you have to eat a lot of them to satiate, that's not the point. It's part of the meal. Yeah, so you wouldn't make a blessing on it. Even though you'll tell me normally you would make a separate blessing on it if you ate it for dessert. Good. That I hear. But if you're eating it as part of the meal, then what happens? Part of the meal. It's totally part of the meal. If it's part of the meal, I don't make a blessing on it. Even if it's something I would normally make a blessing on at the end of the meal. Good. But this isn't the end of the meal. Right? This is totally part of the meal. So therefore, you wouldn't make a blessing. You wouldn't make a blessing on it. Yeah. Any other questions here? All right. So let's go back here. That we said before that fox, right, their bite is much stronger. Now, if you could appease it, so it's not going to bite you very good. But again, we're talking about a case not that way. So what do we see sometimes? All right, we'll just flush this out a little bit. What do we see sometimes? We see, rabbis sometimes have to come out against other rabbis, quote unquote. They have to say things, against them. person say, come on, it's infighting. People shouldn't do it. The problem. Yeah, so I would say like this. Depends why. If it's something they're warning people against because it's heresy, and the person's a heretic. Now let's say we'll make it very easy. They're a heretic, yeah? I can say what I want. Not only can I say what I want, I can try and take away the livelihood. That's how bad it is. Now, if it's Lashon Hara and it's forbidden, yeah, it's a different issue. And that's a totally different. That's a totally different issue. But someone has to come out against somebody. Sometimes it's hard to do it in a nice way. Sometimes there's no nice way to do it. So they go out like a pit bull. They go after them with again, it's not about animosity here. You don't hate the person, you hate what they do. If someone misleads somebody. Yeah? Somebody misleads somebody. That's a problem. Said this many times. It's a problem. And these people, you have to come out against them. Now, my only caveat in saying that is it doesn't mean every second of every day I have to do that. When it's necessary, it should be done. It should be done. My Rebbe's done it against Zionists. Came out, a number of weeks against Ben Gvir, going up on the Temple Mount, but it's a danger. Someone causing danger to the Jewish people. Even if you hold it's permissible to go up there, which most rabbinic authorities hold not that way. But they're going to give up their lives for that and try and kill Jews for it. Why? Because for them, it's a religious thing. Doesn't matter. Doesn't say it anywhere in the Quran, this, that. Doesn't matter. Yeah, that's causing danger to the Jewish people. Now, wouldn't I agree that the Temple Mount belongs to Jewish people? Yes. Not a question. Also, would I agree that no Jew should go up there? Yes. Forbidden for a Jew to go up there. And I would also agree if a Jew goes up there, it's a provocation against non-Jews. That's against the Arabs. That's a serious problem. But that's causing danger to Jewish people. Somebody already called them out a few weeks. For a few weeks already. Calls out the Zionists many times for what they do, for the negative things they do. He also does it plenty of times. Plenty of times. Does it when he feels it's necessary. Someone will say he does it every week and, anytime he can. He does it when he does it. When he feels the need. But why does he do it so many times? Because they're putting the Jewish people in danger. 100% they're putting them in danger. When you put the Jewish people in danger, it's a problem. When they want to take money away from yeshivas, they want to get all Orthodox Jews in the army so they can serve. This is a danger. This is a danger. So things that are going on, call it out on a weekly basis, okay? And if heretics come on and do things or whatever, they should be called out. I have no issue. I have absolutely no issue. The only question is frequency. That's the only thing I would say. It's frequency. Now, leading people astray is a serious thing. Having people think no one's going to go to Gehenna, that's a problem. That no one's going to suffer, and everybody's good. That's a problem. That goes against major tenets of Judaism. Huge problem. Make a lot of people feel good. They don't have to worry about anything they do, but that's a serious philosophical problem. And leading many people astray. So yeah, that has to be called out. 100%. Has to be called out. I think it's mind-boggling in some ways. That being true, how come other people are silent? It's a mind-boggling question. Because a lot of times my Rebbe's come out against certain things and people haven't said anything. Didn't say anything. He came out a few years ago, demolished the quote-unquote chief rabbi of, of England, flattened this person like a pancake, for a lot of heresy that he said. So you tell me in England, no one really holds of him, in the other Orthodox community, it's a political position, this, that. And there's been a lot of problem with, with chief rabbis in England, except probably for Lord Jacobowitz. Everyone else has been problematic in a lot of ways. But people would say, when he come out against him, no one holds of him anyway. No one holds of him anyway. Okay. But why did he come out? Why did he come out so strong? For a number of weeks he came out, flattened him like a pancake. Why? Because he said it like this. That if this person represents Torah in England as quote unquote the chief rabbi, and they're going to think, oh, see, the chief rabbi says it's okay for this, to teach about this abomination. And they're going to say, see, the Orthodox Jews think it's okay. That's desecration of God's name when it's forbidden. Totally. Someone asked, what about missionaries? Yeah, you got to come out against them also. Do everything you can, try and stop them in major ways. Also true. Right? But who are the people coming out against missionaries more than anyone else? Counter missionaries. People heading yeshivas, different things, they're not worrying about them. They got other things to worry about. Doing with their students. Like, that's not an issue for them. Don't worry, the students are going to get carried away by it. They don't have to speak about it. Right? That wouldn't be something they would bring up in any of their talks. Nothing. They wouldn't bring it about. Now you're going to say, is it a problem with these missionaries? Sure. 100%. Right? It's interesting that it's a serious missionary problem here in Israel. No question. Yeah, I got a lot of missionaries coming here. Yeah, it's a big problem. Very big problem. So there are organizations trying to deal with it. You got Rabbi Singer dealing with it, you got Leib Achim, you got organizations, kind of missionary organizations. Right? Trying to deal with it. So yeah, you have some other rabbis coming out because they for whatever reason, they have contact with this. But it's funny, over the years, I know my Rebbe 28 years, going 29 years, and his main thing is coming out speaking very strong against Zionists. And all the things the Zionists have done and what they've done against ultra-Orthodox Jews and different things. I don't remember him coming out very strong against missionaries, per se. It's not his thing, right? He's not going to say it's not an issue, right? He's definitely not going to say that. What's at the top of his list? Top of the list of what the Zionists do, and top of the list is I don't care what Iran does, I don't care what Iraq does, I don't care anything else. I'm more worried about what Jews in Israel do that sin. That's worse. That is 10 times worse. And because of what, God forbid, people here do, causes worse problems. So if you have some idiot that goes up on the Temple Mount, that's a problem. That's putting lives in danger. That is putting Jewish lives in danger here and other places. That you can't have. That for sure you can't have. If someone represents Torah, in whatever place, and they say, yeah, you can teach the curriculum of abomination in yeshivas, that's a problem. That's a serious problem. That you're going to come out against. Someone distort the Torah like that. I understand why he said it. I understand his position. Okay, that doesn't matter. Forbidden. Makes Orthodox Jews look bad. You're going to say, oh, see? He says it's okay. So it must be it's okay according to Judaism. That's a problem. That's a desecration of God's name. Not in the literal sense. But that's a desecration of God's name. So that I hear is going to come out strong against. When that happens. And this whole thing with the army. This whole thing with the army, thinking that, they're God's gift to the world. There's no God involved over here and all this. Yeah. We're going to say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. What do you mean? You're going to do this. The first thing that happened that we saw beyond the shadow of a doubt, right? That beyond the shadow of a doubt, what happened on October 7th was that Israel got hit very strong. Their invincible army looked pretty bad. There are a lot of miscalculations over here. A lot of serious miscalculations. What happened? Okay, now they're in the fight for their lives, right? Down south, up north, without getting into all that. But there were serious mistakes that were made. So yeah, we're going to wipe them out. We're going to do that. Very good. Get all this firepower, nuclear weapons. And what happened? They slaughtered 1,200 people, 1,400 people. Slaughtered. Yeah, we don't go into detail. Slaughtered them. Didn't make them really look bad. So Rabbi said one of the first things is that their gaiva, their conceitedness of how great they are and powerful they are, they couldn't even stop it. Couldn't stop it. They spent millions, billions building this wall. And they flew over the wall. They tried to go through the wall. They flew over it. Unbelievable. Think about it. But hit them right in the heart. Yeah, heads are going to roll. No question about it. That's a serious mistake. 6-Day War, no different. Miraculous how it ended. But the writing was already on the wall. They misjudged it. God bailed them out. There was misjudgment. Total misjudgment. So, things like that, you have to call out. 100% you have to call out. For what it is. Now, you need a standing army. No one disagrees. And they're sacrificing their lives. No question about it. But they'd have even less success if they didn't have people praying for them. Why do they have so many? They wanted 5,000 pairs of tefillin for people going in to fight. It's unbelievable. Secular Jews. Well, they understand. They understand the truth. Deep down. It's not the power of the weapons. Because it would have been the power of the weapons, none of this should have happened. None of it. Okay, you have things here, things there. I understand. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. I've been here 28 out of the last 31 years. They're the worst things ever happened. They've been there, bus bombings, other things. God forbid, sometimes, people try to infiltrate different places. Some succeeded, kill people. Okay, these things, they flare up, they happen. Nothing like this on this scale. Nothing. Nothing like this. Shootings, different things. Okay. Like this? Taking over different places down south? Unheard of. Unheard of. But there's a message. There's a message. As great as the army is, they look really bad in this state, didn't they? Yeah, they killed all these, a whole bunch of terrorists after the fact, but look what happened. The same thing. Well, they'll make a little bit of a distinction here. Whatever happened during COVID, and I would agree, I think the numbers are skewed because anyone who had COVID in their system and they died, they said they died because of COVID. So the numbers are less. Okay. I'll tell you one thing that it shows beyond the shadow of a doubt. These doctors didn't know diddly squat what they were dealing with. Wearing masks, social distance. I was just reminded by this the other day because I was in line waiting for something. I still had these markings, stay 2 meters away. Right? This way and that way and straight in front of you. I had these archaic things. I think it's only 4 years ago. Right? But one thing for sure, regardless of whether you're holding the vaccine, you don't hold the vaccine, it made the medical establishment look stupid. That's the bottom line. And now they're finally admitting, it wasn't a virus that came out of a lab. Yeah, okay. That's not a conspiracy theory anymore. But regardless, they didn't know diddly. They didn't know what they were dealing with. Tried this, that didn't work. This, that didn't work. Other things didn't work. Scared the wits out of everybody for sure. Yeah. Same thing. Same basic idea. Yeah, they didn't know what they were doing. And it made them look, the point is that made them look really bad. So the army too, no different. Made them look really bad. As great as they are. They have a lot of respect for what they do. A lot of families, horrifically. Children dying, to protect the country, okay? Sacrificing lives, good. Place needs to be protected. True. But it's not the power of their arms. What they did a few weeks ago was pretty impressive. Preliminary strike, Hezbollah wasn't able to strike. Yeah, they were going to send 6,000 missiles. They have hundreds of thousands of missiles. So they nailed them before they started. Very good. Last time this happened 2 months ago after Passover, or before, right? 300 came, drones and whatever. So you had two systems working together, never worked together. It's the first time, knocked all of them out. That's pretty miraculous. 6,000? Shut down the airport? 6,000 missiles they were shot. It's a lot more complex here. They're just going to march into Lebanon over here. It's a much different enemy. Much scarier enemy, in many ways. But that was an absolute miracle. I don't think there's any question about it. At the same time, other things happen, and they can happen. But to the scale that it happened before October 7th, nothing like that. Not even close. You have people killed and bus bombings, other things, handfuls, maybe at 10, maybe 15, maybe less, whatever. Not trying to downsize it or downgrade it in any way. But this was something else altogether. Had free reign just to slaughter people. Good. You had first responders trying to take care of that, whatever. With the whole thing that went on. Horrific. 28 years I've been here, never. Not even close. So the bottom line, as my Rebbe said, hit them right in the heart. Hit the army right in the heart. Now you need the army, no one's saying not. We have to have gratitude for the army, no question about it. But at the end of the day, God's calling the shots here. God's one in charge. Why did it happen? Don't know. But what's the bottom line? The great army didn't prevent it. They should have been able to prevent it. You see what happened by the Twin Towers, September 11th? They're kind of strange. People learning how to fly planes. They go to a plane school, right? They learn how to fly planes, and none of them want to know how to land. They didn't teach them how to land. Now, you're going to say hindsight's 2020. Okay. Isn't that weird? A whole bunch of people learning how to fly a plane, but none of them learned how, none of them learned how to land it. That's, a little bit loopy, right? It's very strange. It's not like you say, see, look what happened there. They should have known. Obviously, God wanted it to happen. Well, it's very interesting. Twin Towers, what do they represent? Financial district. Heart of America. Financial district. But in such a way in American soil. Yeah, it was a huge wake-up call. Huge wake-up call. Because that got everything going that, as the Malbim says, it's going to be a fight against Ishmael and Edo. Ishmael being the Muslims, Edo being the Western world. Asa. Before that, they had that kind of power. Malbim wrote this more than 100 years ago. You wouldn't think the Muslims had any kind of power whatsoever. None. Bunch of Bedouins, whatever. So they take over oil, get into oil, other things, change the whole thing. Would have thought of that in a million years. In a million years. God has his ways. If you read this Malbim, 30 years ago, if you're looking at this Malbim, you would say, come on. Very interesting explanation, but I don't see it realistically. Well, after 9/11, after, looking for bin Laden destroyed half of Afghanistan, like, this is not a war against Islam. Okay, sure. That's what it is. That's what you have today. But you have these Muslims and, everywhere in the world, especially in Europe. You got small minorities, and all over Europe, pockets in Europe. Powder keg, right? Powder keg. So, you look at these things, yeah, we have to have the Torah eyes to understand. The Torah eyes to be able to see. But again, these type of things, my people call it out all the time. Because you don't say, we just read in last week's part 2 weeks ago. In Deuteronomy chapter 7. In Deuteronomy chapter 7, chapter 8, says that Kohos and Viadi was it. Right? The power of my hand did this. Power of my hands. There's the power of your hands. God's doing everything here. See, that's the scary part. When you don't see that God runs the world and God has a hand here, and you say it's the power of my hand. And, Netanyahu said it, all these other people said it over and over and over. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, the power, of the Israeli army, blah, blah, blah. And my Rebbe said week after week, this is not what needs to be said. Just the opposite. You got to acknowledge God's the one in charge. When you start saying, I'm in charge, you put the Jewish people in danger. Now, a person goes, hey, come on, isn't that overkill? It's dangerous. This is the whole point. When you have something that dangerous, you call it out, even if it's on a regular basis. So that, I don't have an issue with. When it's needed, it's needed. If a person's saying certain things, and they continue to say certain things, and people are getting misled, sure, you got to call it out. You got to call it out. So the only question is, how often do you do it? Some people say, I have to do it. More than every so often. I have to do it. Okay. I would say something's more, something's less. Fine. It's a danger. It's an absolute danger. And someone who's makti as a rabbim who causes other people to sin is worse than the person that sins himself. That's worse. It's one of the things JC was accused of. The Gemara says is makti as a rabbim, causing others to sin. Among other things. Witchcraft, other things. Yeah, but that was one of them. Causing other people to sin. That's worse than the sin itself. You nip it at the bud, you go at the top. The person that sins, good, they did something wrong, okay. But if they're influenced by others, yeah. You gotta try and stop it, you gotta call it out. Right? I don't think there's any question. It's someone asked, which Rav does Mr. Ben Gavir listen to? Don't know. Very good question. Very good question. I would tell you, though, there are people that hold you can't go on the Temple Mount. Now, even if there are rabbis that hold that, which is a minority opinion, right? Let's make clear, it's a minority opinion. But even if they hold it's permissible, remember one thing. If it's going to cause potentially loss to Jewish life, it doesn't matter if it's permissible or not. Just because we have a right to it doesn't mean we should do it. Now, other people have argued if we don't go to certain places, they have to come take it over. That might be true. That may be true, but if you're putting life in danger, who says you're allowed to? Right? Who is his Das Torah? Who's the rabbi he listens to? Very good question. Very good question. And whoever that is, you would have to ask, is it worth it to put Jewish life in danger? And what would a possible answer be? If you walk downtown Jerusalem, you're putting, Jewish life in danger. Not like this. Not like this. This is much more of a provocation. Wherever you live, doesn't matter. You live in the West Bank, quote unquote, occupied territory, whatever. You say that's worse. All right. But if you walk in Tel Aviv, they want you out of here also. You ain't go anywhere in this country. Okay, that's not necessarily going to cause them to attack you, per se. Or start another intifada. They don't need any reason to. But if you go up on the Temple Mount, you rub it in their face, and you rub their religion in their face, saying, we own it and whatever, and they make it a religious thing, yeah, that's a problem. That is going to cause unbelievable hatred, and it could, God forbid, cause Jews to die. So that you can't have. Even if you believe it's the right thing. Let's say I would agree that some of these rabbis know where to stand. And they know it's not going to be a problem with getting spiritually cut off. Okay, let's say. Should you do it? If there's the potential of causing Jewish people to die, you're putting Jewish people in danger, you can't do it. Even if you know what you're doing. That's the problem. So who's this rabbinic authority? Very good question. Very, very good question. Now, if this rabbinic authority told them that's what you should do and that's what you're allowed to do, okay. Yeah, it's wrong. He's wrong. There's no question about it. Because it puts lives in danger. No matter what you think, it belongs to us. They know it belongs to us. They're not that stupid. They understand. So they lie, propaganda, other things, very good. But you can't put people's lives in danger. Even if you know where to stand. I get it. I understand the mentality behind it. Okay, that's a provocation. That's a worse provocation than doing anything else. You'll say, fine, we kill some of their leaders. That's also provocation. Good. But you're doing that for other reasons. Okay, that's not the issue. This is a direct provocation that could cause Jewish people to die. If that is the case, you can't do it. Even if you want to show them it belongs to us. They know it belongs to us. They know that. But for them, it's a religious thing. And every single one of them will be willing to die for a religious principle. Right or wrong, doesn't matter. Right? Even for the sake of a lie. But they're going to make it a religious issue no matter how not true it is. So we can't do that. How are we allowed to do that? Right? That's a problem. Right? Someone says, I shared what the Talmud says. Well, JC was born Jewish man, very good. Right? And asked him the thought was written by men. Who knows whether that's true or not? Yeah. A lot of people in the Talmud, let's just say, had the ability to bring people back to life, even though the generation didn't deserve it. They're just men. Aren't they just men? They're just men. Yeah. They're incredible men, though. No one in this generation or even for many previous generations, nobody can bring people back to life. Yeah. Even if it's written by men, right? Wouldn't Christian scholars say we have our own scholars? We have our own way to interpret things. Okay. We gave the rabbis the right, not we, the Torah. We mentioned this week's Torah portion. You have to listen to the Kohanim and Levites in every generation. They say what's right is left, left is right. You got to listen to them. Regardless right? If you don't, you get the death penalty. Now, they have the right to interpret in every generation, because what are people going to say? I only want to listen to God. I'm going to listen to God. I've heard this argument. I can't even tell you how many times. God's going to come to me and speak to me. Very good. So let him come speak to you. But the bottom line is, there's an obligation to listen to what the rabbis say. Obligation. They're only men. Okay. Now, Karaites would say the same thing. Karaites do not believe in oral tradition. But you know what? The Karaites also wear tefillin. Right? Tefillin, I mentioned earlier, it's halacha Moshe Sinai, right? It is written in the Torah, but a lot of the things we know about tefillin are given to God by God to Moses at Mount Sinai. Hundreds and thousands of laws. Yeah. So I would say, yeah, the rabbis are only men. Okay. So I would ask, very good, they're only men. How do we know what to do with almost any mitzvah? Any mitzvah. Yeah, tefillin's a good example. What are frontlets between your eyes? How do I bind them on my arm? God doesn't tell me. Sukkah's coming up about 6 weeks. You have to bring, a lulav, willows, myrtle leaves, and a nice smelling fruit in front of God. What's a nice smelling fruit? You think it's a quince. Someone else thinks it's a pomegranate. Someone else thinks it's a watermelon. No one's going to think it's a lemon on steroids. Very bumpy, lemon. No one's going to think that. How do we know? Because we know from moral law. That's how we know. Right? So the bottom line is, even if you want to say they were just men. Yeah, didn't God give the Kohen, the Levite in every generation to interpret the Torah? He did. The person's going to say, my knowledge is just as good as theirs. Well, I would tend to differ because I think they knew 10 times more than anyone else will ever know in 10 lifetimes. Right? But, I would say, even if that's true, how would we know anything in the Torah? The Torah tells me 3 times not to cook a calf in its mother's milk. Why? Right? Forget about why. The Torah also says, right, I can't eat milk and meat together. Now, if I have kosher meat and I have kosher cheese, yeah, first of all, you're never going to eat meat and cheese at the same time from the same cow or its child. It's never, practically speaking, it's never going to happen now. Could be back in the day, maybe. Maybe it was more common. Today, not the case. But I would ask the question, if you have kosher meat and kosher cheese, if I put them over heat, why is it forbidden? Why in the world is it forbidden? Torah doesn't give me an explanation. Torah just says don't do it. Don't cook a calf in its mother's milk. Now, the Torah says it 3 times. Torah doesn't mince its words. Why is it mentioned it 3 times? Right? So I'll tell you, the rabbis tell us that it's forbidden to cook it. It's forbidden to eat it. It's forbidden to cook it even if you don't eat it. And it's forbidden to get benefit from. Yeah. Could be many other explanations also. So you could ask back, okay, they're the ones God said are allowed, the Kohen, the Levite in every generation can interpret the Torah. How would we know what the Torah is without them? Without these 39 tractates, how would I know? How would I know what the Torah means? I have no definitions in the Torah. Torah says don't kill. Very good. What if you kill in self-defense? Torah doesn't tell me. What about, euthanasia? Oh, that's not murder. That is mercy. That's mercy. It's a different issue. Yeah, so there are many, many things. I would say most of the Torah that needs explanation. So where will we get explanation from? Where would I get any explanation from? Who's going to tell me what it means? They need the rabbis tell. You'll say, but that's not God. Well, didn't God give them the ability? Read what the Torah says. God gave the ability to Kohen and Levite in every generation. To explain what the Torah means. Finished. So they have a right to interpret. Yeah. Talmud was written by men. Very good. So how else would we understand what the Torah is if we didn't have it? Go back and ask them that. How else will we know? Well, we're going to wait for God to reveal himself again. Good luck. Never happened again in history. It's never going to happen again. Where else should we know what to do and how to do it? Right? It's always good to ask a question with a question. Yeah. Somebody asks, I read last week's prohibition cutting off fruit tree during war. Yeah. Wasting resources in general. Can I elaborate on this? When someone's relocating, does the move cell donate anything? Certain things be thrown out. Fruit trees are a different thing. Fruit-bearing trees are how to cut out. Yeah. The obligation is to keep them alive. Right? If you cut down fruit-bearing trees, you won't have food. You won't have fruits. Right? So, even during war, right? You're wasting resources. But again, when a person moves, that's not the same thing. Right? A person moves to a community, you gotta, you downsize, you take what you need, whatever. Getting rid of things you don't need, that's not the same thing. That's definitely not the same thing. If you want to get rid of stuff because A, you need the money, whatever, or you don't need this stuff, you're allowed to. It's not wasting things. But things you don't need. So if it's things you don't need, so get rid of it. That's not wasting things. Right? That is totally that's not wasting things. When you have fruit-bearing trees, you can't cut them down, you can't waste them. They have a purpose. Right? What's the purpose? Bearing fruits. Who says you're allowed to cut them down? Even during war. Right? It's a serious thing, If a person had a fruit-bearing tree, they wanted to uproot it and plant it somewhere else. No, it's so simple. Not so simple. Can't just cut it up for no reason. Yeah, even during war. Right? Even during war. So, again, if a person's relocating, very good. If a person's relocating, so whatever you have, you need to get rid of, you get rid of. It's not a problem. It's not the same prohibition. Definitely not the same prohibition. Somebody asks why they wear tefillin. Good question. You have to ask a Karaite. Yeah, but they have a tradition. They'll say we have our own interpretations. We have our own rabbinic scholars. We have our own scholars. But again, you're right. It's a very good question. How do they know what tefillin are? If the Torah says put frontlets between your eyes, how do they know that's tefillin? Good question. They'll say we have our own rabbis to discuss it. And that's what the conclusion they came to. But it's like saying it's their rabbis against our rabbis, right? Yeah, it's problematic. You're right. You're right. Very good. They how can they say they wear tefillin? Good. All right. It's a good question. Someone is pursuing Orthodox conversion. To hear the response from a Jewish man was somewhat disappointing. I would say, come on, we're our own worst enemy. There are people who say, plenty of people say, oh, come on, these laws are so ancient, they're so this, they're so that. I know better than these rabbis, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's hubris. That's being conceited. Well, why are they doing that? Why would they do that? They say, well, I don't believe in this, whatever. But why would they do it? To give it non-legitimacy. Because they want to show why I don't have to keep Torah mitzvahs. Oh, come on, who's the rabbis, everything they say, and blah, blah, blah. And they'll say it's not the same Torah, it's a big game of telephone. Right? We don't have the same Torah as was given at Mount Sinai, blah, blah, blah. There are answers to these questions, but why are they asking the question? Because they want to find a way not to keep it. So it's not so surprising. Right? Again, we're our own worst enemy. I mean, a lot of the, biggest leftists in the world are Jews. In many ways. For goodness sakes, most in America, we'll just pick on America, most American Jews vote Democrat, which is insane. It's absolutely insane. The views on Israel, views on other things, it's insane. Right? Trump, whatever you want to say about him, he's right. How can a Jew be a Democrat and vote Democrat? It's true. Many ways. I'm not saying, Republicans are any great shakes either. They got their own issues. But yeah, be like these progressives and different things and be a Democrat. Yeah, it's yeah. It's gotta be a little bit insane also, or a lot insane. That's true. But that's not surprising. Why would I say it's not surprising? Because they don't have any Jewish values. They don't have any Torah values. If you don't have any Torah values, you should be a leftist. Why not? Why would someone be, right wing? They wouldn't. They might be right wing when it comes to Israel in some ways. But in their own practice in Judaism, they'll be leftists. Not surprising. Sad, but it's not surprising. I know a number of people that, consider them Reform conservative Jews at best. They're very pro-Israel and this and that. Very good, but they won't vote Democrat. 100%. Right? But their own, it's an oxymoron. But their own practice, they're not doing very much. It's sad, but that's the reality. Yeah. Any questions? Do I have any advice on how to get married? Yeah, I'm not going to discuss it now. But that person already has to move to the Jewish community, has to, convert first and whatever. Plenty of good marriage books out there. Jewish marriage books. Yeah, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, half hour earlier now because Shabbos is coming out earlier, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, you can find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, Book of Leviticus. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good. Beginning of the day, middle of the day.